Rachel Maddow documents how JD Vance wants to end government, universities, and businesses. Queer News Tonight has reported extensively on some very radical positions Senator JD Vance has discussed, especially as it relates to LGBTQ+ civil and cultural rights. Rachel Maddow last night laid out a blistering indictment showing that before Vance ran for office, he supported radical ideology on LGBTQ+ and other cultural war issues, including advocating an extreme solution. Vance said, quote, "Conservatives need to wake up, but what they need to wake up to is the fact that most of American life and culture should be ripped out like a tumor."
Our leaders right now are so corrupt and so vile that if you assimilate into their culture, you're assimilating into like garbage liberal elite culture. You're not assimilating into traditional American culture. And so this is a tough pickle for me. I don't even know what the right answer is here, because you can't just teach these things. You can't teach that we live in a great country if the leaders are actively aligned against it. So almost the thing that you need to do, step one in the process, is to totally replace, like rip out like a tumor, the current American leadership class, and then reinstall some sense of American, political religion.
That's right. You just heard Vance say, install American political religion. End quote. Vance said this on the far-right Jack Murphy Live podcast on September 17th, 2021, before he entered political life. During the interview, Murphy gets excited about Vance's views, but asks how to accomplish it. Vance explains the source of his thoughts and ideology.
You said something that I would like to zero down on. How do we effectively, quote, rip out the disgusting leadership class?
Oh, man.
Because let me expand on that just a second, because and I'm going to give you a little cover here, because it's not just, obviously elections, that's one thing. Okay. But unfortunately, this evil leadership class has already taken over all of our institutions. Current pipeline is to turn them into those people that we just called evil and disgusting. How do we, aside from elections, how do we rip out this leadership class? So these institutions are corrupted and rotted to the core. This elite ideology is everywhere and in all the things. What other options do we have besides voting them out, which we're seeing is ineffectual?
Yeah. So again, this is like a tough question, but this is maybe the question that confronts us right now. There's this guy, Curtis Yarvin, who's written about some of these things.
Project 2025, and now Curtis Yarvin. This radically right-wing activist have been characterized by ideology opponents as an advocate of anarchy. He has suggested that you seize and close universities, use the government to destroy business seated in woke ideology, and end the current government of the United States.
So I've reduced this very complicated problem to a simple 4-letter acronym, which is RAGE. And RAGE stands for Retire All Government Employees. Very, very simple. Now, the problem with this is, why have you never heard this before? Why has no one ever suggested, let's just get rid of this thing? You have a government in Washington, you're for it or against it. What is government? A government is just a corporation which owns the country. Nothing more, nothing less. It so happens that our sovereign corporation is very poorly managed, and there's a very simple way to replace that, which is what we do to all corporations that have failed. We simply delete them. We haven't been able to do that with our government for 2 years, so it's gotten a little bit stale.
Quoting Yarvin, what is the government? It's just a corporation that runs the country. We should delete the U.S. government because it's stale, end quote. When Vance tries to answer Jack Murphy's question on ripping out the tumor in America, he suggests Curtis Yarvin has already considered the solution.
The other thing about getting rid of your government is you can't just say, well, the limits of the government are the limits of the formal government. You have to say, well, what is the system actually? And it includes a lot of things that are called NGOs, things that are called universities, things that are funded by the state. It's a very, very large system, and it all needs to be destroyed. Fortunately, there's a lot of talented Americans who actually know how to run things and make things work and are generalists. And you can just get these people, put them in a position of responsibility and have them do their thing. And finally, you need a CEO. And a national CEO is what's called a dictator. It's the same thing. There's no difference between a CEO and a dictator. If Americans want to change their government, they're going to have to get over their dictator phobia.
Vance radical ideology sources Yarvin. Yarvin says, quote, for the government, you need an actual CEO, and an actual CEO is called a dictator. It's the same thing. There is no difference between a CEO and a dictator. If Americans want to change their government, they are going to have to get over dictator phobia, end quote. Prior to 2022, Vance had no political experience and appears on the American landscape only in the last couple of years. So where did he come from, and how did he get to this moment in just 2 years? The answer is money. His Ohio Senate election was largely supported in various ways from Silicon Valley tech billionaires, including the single largest Senate campaign donation in history from PayPal billionaire Peter Thiel, who ironically is a member of the LGBTQ+ community. This is why the Rachel Maddow discovery is so critical to a full understanding of not just who JD Vance is, but what his real ideology and goal is all about, especially as to how it affects the LGBTQ+ community. Vance and Murphy discuss what they called, quote, extra-constitutional actions that could be taken to remove the tumor to solve systemic progressive liberalism. As example, they discuss seizing Harvard's endowment fund as a way to correct the woke university. Vance suggests that if you must make it financially painful to bring rogue corporate thinking in line. Interestingly, this is exactly what conservative activist Robbie Starbuck is accomplishing against the HRC and getting corporate America to bend to radically right issues over diversity, inclusion, and more. Maddow says she debated with herself on whether to connect the dots. I'm so happy she did. And report on where JD Vance created his ideology. Her analysis gives a glimpse of where he developed his blueprint and where he could take America as vice president and even as president. There is so much more detail in her micro-analysis of where JD Vance is really going and why. To have a better understanding, Queer News Tonight highly recommends you watch the full September 30th episode of The Rachel Maddow Show. Maddow is a member of our LGBTQ+ community, and this reporting is extremely important. In tonight's VP debate, Tim Walz will bring up Vance's positions on experience, on abortion, on LGBTQ+ rights, and more. But Maddow hauntingly asks, what do we do with this?
The thing that you need to do, step one in the process, is to totally replace, like rip out like a tumor, the current American leadership class.
Republicans, conservatives, we're still terrified of wielding power, of actually doing the job that the people sent us here to do.
Finally, you need a CEO, and a national CEO is what's called a dictator. It's the same thing.
But we've got to get comfortable with wielding power.
There's no difference between a CEO and a dictator. If Americans want to change their government, they're going to have to get over their dictator phobia.
That was difficult to watch, to say the least. I believe Rachel Maddow deserves 19 raises for that, and I hope that this evidence and all of these clips and all of these clips that she's gotten from the media are shown on repeat so that we can go into tonight's VP presidential debate with the facts, because these videos are facts. They are not made up, and it's not propaganda. It's right in front of you. Read it, weep it, take it in, and vote correctly.
I can't wait for the night. I am excited. I want to see how it goes down. And you know, I don't know if you all saw the movie of his life or read the book, but really it is an inspiring story. And it's disgusting to me that you come from these humble beginnings. You know, he was a mountain person, right? No offense to mountain people, but, you know, living in poverty and, you know, dealing with a drug addict mother and all of that. So you struggle and achieve so much to become an absolute idiot.
Right.
Yes, exactly, an idiot. And a deplorable one. Because, you know, it's like when you think you see the story, I saw the movie and I was like, oh, wow, this is before I got to know him, really.
Right.
And
I feel like a lot of people are saying that exact statement that you keep saying. Well, I watched the movie and it doesn't seem that bad. Don't let the movie discredit the destruction of what's going on in front of us in the world. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think during the movie, he was a never Trump guy, right?
Yeah, no, he was like likable.
Right,
he was likable in the movie.
Right, he had LGBTQ friends at Yale.
Right.
I have to admit, I liked Trump when he had his reality show.
I think a lot of people.
I liked him
did.
As a television character.
Yes,
character.
exactly.
As a television character.
A caricature of himself.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was a failed business person that took on a show about running businesses. So let's just say he was playing the role of
You liked the personalities who added to the whole show,
exactly.
and he was just there. I can promise you that. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of code. I think that people need to be very aware of when JD Vance uses the terms, of course, traditional American culture. I look across this table. I'm pretty sure that all of us have different American culture, and traditional, when they're referring to that, means white people. So the first thing is all of these things they want to institute are to favor the white nationalist community. So again, who have been linked to terrorism and trying to overthrow the government. Now we're linking this back to replacing everyone in government, another sign of anarchy. And let's not forget, which is highlighted in the story, is that JD Vance also has never really accomplished anything on his own, and he has been bought by Peter Thiel. He has not been just donated to. It was the most expensive Senate campaign in the history of the Senate for him to win that. Wow. And so again, and he's only been a senator for 2 years, and we were just faced with the criticism of if Biden, can't stay in office, what's going to happen? Oh, I don't know. A woman who has the most experience ever would have become the president. Now we're faced with if Trump wins, the least experienced person ever will become the president, who is also linked to all these crazy stories. What I'm most afraid of, and I watched this story last night, and I had read a little about it before, about some of the Project 2025 and some of these things that are linked to JD Vance,
which is wild.
Is that our community, and not just our community, is that the electorate is not going to hear what Rachel Maddow says. They're just not going, and we can't talk about it enough. I think we should be sharing it.
Oh yeah,
sending it to your friend, because again, we all probably can sit here and say we have friends and family who work in government. Are they there to be, as a political figure? No, that's their job. They go to work every day to do a job. And this buffoon is saying that all of these people need to be ripped out of government, who has never done anything in his life, run anything successful.
And I just have to say this, and I know you want to say something, but it comes to my mind when listening to you talk, that there are people in this country that want to hold on to white supremacy so bad that they would vote for an absolute idiot, a third grader. Because I've heard he's been the way he speaks, the way he articulates has been compared to like third grade level. And, and so you would vote for someone like that over someone like Kamala that has so much experience. What kind of experience does Trump have? I mean, governmental.
He had zero when he became the president.
Exactly.
Yes.
But it's just really disgusting. I mean, and I was naive. When Obama won, I really said to myself, I think this country's getting past race. But little did I know that was the thing that brought all the racist folks out that were in their corners and really got them out. And And I'm like, damn it. Like, we have one president of color and people are losing their mind? Right. I just want to see Kamala win because she'll be the first woman. We need a woman, okay? We've had men all along. We need a woman in there and of color. That's going to be historic. Anyway, Vaughn, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I'm just rolling my eyes.
Oh. I love you.